National Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture paints a gloomy economy in 2015. We will take a look at the economy in details as Gabriel Idahosa reviews the development in 2014. Welcome to Business Incorporated. Thanks for joining me. I am Bolaji Akinwale. Merry Christmas to all our viewers. We will begin with the stories that made the round during the week as the National Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture states that the new year may pose challenges to Nigerians. The contribution of Nigeria's oil sector to the gross domestic product is lower than that of many other members of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. According to analyses of data obtained from the 12-member oil cartel, the rebasing of the country's GDP in April had clearly underscored the decline in the contribution of the oil and gas sector to the GDP in recent times. Prior to the rebasing, the contribution of crude oil and natural gas to the nominal GDP was 40.86% in 2011, 37.01% in 2012, and 32.43% in 2013. After the rebasing, the sector's share of the GDP stood at 17.52%, 15.89%, and 14.40% for 2011, 2012, and 2013 each. Nigeria, Africa's top oil producer, derives 95% of export earnings and 70% of government revenue from the oil sector, which saw its contribution to the real GDP dropping below 11% in the third quarter of this year. The National Bureau of Statistics in its third quarter report noted that the oil and gas sector contributed about 10.45% to the real GDP in the third quarter, lower than the 10.76% contribution in the second quarter of 2014. The decline in the sector's contribution was attributed to production challenges, which led to reduction in the average daily production of crude oil in the third quarter. In Angola, Africa's second-largest oil producer, oil production and its supporting activities contributed about 45% to the nation's GDP. Oil and gas sector accounts for about 60% of Kuwait and Libya's GDP. In Saudi Arabia, the cartel's largest producer, the oil and gas sector accounts for 48% of the GDP. Qatar's oil and natural gas accounts for about 55% of the GDP. About 10% of the UAE's GDP is directly based on oil and gas output, while Venezuela's oil and gas sector is around 25% of its GDP. The federally collected revenues stood at 743.57 billion naira in October 2014, lower than both the monthly budget estimate and the receipts in the preceding month by 18% and 10.6% respectively. The Central Bank of Nigeria revealed this in its monthly economic report for October, obtained during the week. The decline relative to the monthly budget estimate was largely attributed to the shortfall in receipts from oil revenue during the review month. Also, at 470.04 billion naira, gross oil receipts, which constituted 63.2% of the total revenue, was lower than both the monthly budget estimate and the preceding month by 21.3% and 14.1% in that order. In addition, it stated that at 273.54 billion naira, gross non-oil receipts during the month constituted 36.8% of the total revenue and was lower than the monthly budget estimate and receipts in the preceding month by 11.5% and 3.9%. However, the decrease in non-oil revenue relative to the monthly budget estimate reflected largely the fall in receipts from corporate tax and customs and excise duties. According to the report, with a total of 16.408 trillion naira, aggregate banking system credit to the domestic economy grew by 0.9% on month-on-month basis, so the end of October, compared with the growth of 2.7% recorded at the end of the preceding month. Officials of the National Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture. They gathered to assess the economy for 2014. The Deputy National President of NASIMA, Mr. Bassi Edem, highlighted areas where the government's efforts at diversifying the economy yielded fruits.
The government actually did well in terms of trying to diversify the economy. The transformation agenda of Mr. President, he tried to make sure that the infrastructures are put in place. Actually, it is the first time. I don't know of any other country that has privatized power. So it was a bold step to do that, agriculture. They also taken a bold step to make sure that agriculture, they diversify into agriculture, particularly the key areas. We talked about the maize, where they insisted that the flour mills should take part of the maize to produce their flour.
The group, however, pointed out that the manufacturing sector still remains in comatose.
How manufacturing has featured in this year, sincerely speaking, is not the best of business to be in or sector to be. In Nigeria especially, we know the challenges in facing manufacturing in terms of power generation, in terms of cost of funds, in terms of competition from these Asian tigers and countries, and in terms of very porous border where products that are not of good quality or standard when compared to locally made ones are competing with you.
In 2014, the devaluation of the Naira by the Central Bank of Nigeria led to the local units to trade as high as 185 to the greenback. Interest rates to remain high for businesses as it hovers between 22% and 35%. Also, many businesses have had to pay for electricity bills without consuming any.
When you are not given electricity, you should not be charged. The issue of estimated billing too is a way of cheating. You don't have anything like that. Everybody should be given a big meter.
Looking ahead, NASIMA hinted that the economy for 2015 may pose some challenges for Nigerians.
Just like the federal government is trying to belt up on austerity measures, the business also should belt up. It's going to be not an easy-going year for us. So the first quarter is going to be rough, but I expect that after the first quarter, when people have been elected, and we now know who is going to be where, they will go back and start looking at the economy.
As 2014 comes to a close, many say the time is now to begin to devise strategies that will absorb any form of economic shocks that may arise next year. Let's now listen to Gabriel Idahosa, an economist and the Chief Executive Officer at UHY Amaji & Co., as reviews the 2014 economy. Now, thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel Idahosa, for your time. First of all, I'd like us to look at the economy in 2014. What's your view in terms of what happened in the year?
Well, generally, we met some of the expectations. This was the year that we rebased the economy, and the impact of that, as expected, was to attract a lot of additional investment attention to Nigeria, and that was good for the economy. A lot more countries were now looking to Nigeria. We saw FDIs, foreign direct investment, picking up in specific areas like agriculture, and we saw that some companies that were not traditionally investors in Nigeria now included Nigeria. The major indexes in the world started to include Nigeria in some of their investment indexes, emerging capital market indexes. And for the first half of the year, that reflected the capital market moved pretty up, done very well. And we were hoping that that will continue to the end of the year. But with the fall in oil prices, the second part of the year got hit, and we are seeing that the year closing with the effect of the oil, the oil price. And so it was like a balanced year. First half was all riding high. Second half, we were going down with all the consequences of the fall in oil price. So it's like half and half. So we're ending the year now on a low note. Capital market is down, interest rates are up, and so it was like more like great up to half year, then second half year not so great.
You talked about the capital market, that it's actually performing below expectation, and for most part of the year, it did perform below expectations. What do you think will be responsible for this?
Well, first of all, once the oil prices started coming down, foreign investors, of course, will, especially foreign portfolio investors, will see that that immediately affects our foreign earnings. It affects the budget of the country. So the global effect on the economy is that all the indices will be coming down. So they had to start taking out their funds. So that quickly be reflected. You could see a lot of selling out and moving funds out of the country. That primarily really brought down the prices of most of the stocks, because we have a large component of foreign investors who are investing third-party funds. Most of the foreign investors are institutions investing on behalf of either their shareholders or participants in equity funds or managed funds. So usually they will react quickly to protect those funds once they saw that a major issue like the fall in prices was happening. More so when the fall in price was not a temporary one. Everybody saw that this fall in price was going to be prolonged. It's not like because there was some crisis in the Middle East and so after a few days it was going to turn around. The cause of the fuel price was fundamental, and so all the foreign investors in the capital market obviously had to retreat, except those who had very long positions and probably just still strong enough to wait for the market to rebound.